welcome back to the studio, and thank you for joining me for another episode of Throwback Thursday. So, give me 1 second here, trying to get the video to come up on my laptop. I am muted on there, so that's good. Let me just adjust this a little tiny bit so we are in frame, and I'll bring it down just a teeny tiny bit. And hopefully the focusing doesn't get messed up while I'm working here. So let me just getting little bits and pieces here put together. Okie dokie. So let me see, what else do I need to do? I think that's all I need. Let me scroll back up and we will get started. I'll bring my lighting down just a little tiny bit. So again, thank you everybody for joining me here in the studio. This is my new episode of Throwback Thursday. Throwback Thursdays are where I pull out my retired stash and I create two projects using that. I have gotten a lot of positive feedback on this. One of the things with Stampin' Up, unfortunately, is that not everything lasts a very long time. Sometimes the life of a product may be for one catalog or maybe a few months or so if it's on an online exclusive item. And this was in our, what was it? I think January to April mini catalog last year. It had carried over into the annual catalog, and then this year it went into the online exclusives. It did end up on the last chance list, and just recently it's completely retired, meaning that it's no longer available. So before it did go away, I was a little bit late to this, even though this is something that I wanted for a very long time. Hold on 1 second. Hold on. Just want to check here. Just want to check something. Okay. All right. I needed to take a quick peek because it's showing that there's three viewers on this and it should only be two. So I wanted to make sure that I'm actually showing as unlisted. So what I do on my Throwback Thursdays, my monthly Christmas card inspiration, my paper pumpkin unboxing, those videos, I do it as a live, but I do it unlisted. And the reason why I do it that way rather than how I was doing videos in the past, I would actually do individual little video clips and put it together, add music and all that fun stuff. But it just seemed like it would take forever for me to get the video done. So to streamline the time that it would take, I would actually come on YouTube, do a live, but do it as unlisted, and then afterwards I'd add, my thumbnail and my descriptive stuff, and then I would schedule it to post when it should post. So I was just checking because there was one time I did my monthly Christmas card inspiration earlier this month, and I swore that I had it on unlisted, and it turned out I gave a bonus live to some of the people that come on and watch while I'm live on Friday nights. So I was just checking that, and if it turned out that I was actually live where all can see, I mean that's okay too. Either way, it's still going to be scheduled and posted for the day that it's going to be posted. So I am doing this. I'm recording this on Sunday, July 13th. But when you see this, it will be on Thursday, 14th, 15th, the 17th of July. So back to what we're using. Sorry about that little rant. So we're using Submarine Life. This was, like I said, this was in the mini catalog from, I believe, January to April of last year. It did carry over into the annual, maybe it was the year before, it could have been the year before, because it was in last year's annual catalog that just retired in April or early May, I believe. And then it ended up into the last chance list, and now it has officially retired. I did look it up on the website, and both components, the punch and the stamp set, are gone now. I did get this kind of like late in the game. This, as soon as it became part of the last chance list, that is when I purchased it. So you, since, again, Throwback Thursday is using retired stash, I decided that this is what I'm going to use for this particular episode. Now, if you have watched the other Throwback Thursdays that I've already done for this month, and what's going to come up, till the end of the month, you'll kind of see that there's a little bit of a theme of almost like a nautical type, or your fish and your ocean related stuff. It's just what ended up happening. I ended up pulling stuff out that, kind of fell into that category. Now, next Thursday would be, what's that one? It'll be Friendly Fins. That's another bundle that has now, you can see the reflection of the punch. And of course, the light's right on it. But yeah, so Friendly Fins will be the next one that I do next Thursday. That too has a whole nautical theme to it. It's got dolphin and sharks and things and fish in it. So that's going to be next Thursday. But you know what? Let's get started on the projects using Submarine Life. The projects that I'm doing are pretty simple. Not a whole lot goes into it, but they're really super cute cards nonetheless. So let me bring in the pieces for my first card. And we got that. So for my card base, it's a standard card base size. Smoky Slate measures 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4.25. I have a piece of basic white. This measures 4.5 by 3.25. I have a piece of the Splendid Autumn Designer Series paper. This measures 4 3/8 by 3 1/8. So here's the one side of it. So in this paper, there is a lot of like painted type designs, fall sunsets and maybe sunrises and some floral images in it. And then on the other side, you have more of what looks like just like a watercolor wash of color on the other side. So what the piece that I'm using, this is part of the image that is on the one side, but this right here, this is balmy blue. And when you look at it, it looks like it can be like an underwater type of scene in a way. And then actually this is my scrap piece of basic white. That's what we're going to stamp and punch on. This is the 4.5 by 3.25 inch piece. And then this piece of designer series paper is 4 3/8 by 3 1/8. And then for my sentiment, this piece measures 3 1/8 of an inch by 1 inch. So let's get started. Let me bring in the ink that I'm going to be using for this card. So I'm going to be using Balmy Blue and Daffodil Delight and Smoky Slate. Now the reason why I got my pads like upside down, because normally when you store the pads this way, the ink pad is attached to the lid. So when you store it this way, your ink is always going to stay at the surface of your ink pad when you go to use it. Now these pads have some ink in it, so I just press down the ink into the pad so I don't have too much ink on my stamps, and then I like to store them upside down like this, so then that way they're good to use, because you don't want your ink pads to be really inky, because then your images won't stamp as nice as you'd like them. Okay, so being that this is a photopolymer stamp set, I am going to bring in my Stampin' Pierce mat. We still do carry these. It is in the annual catalog. What I'll do is I'll start and I'll fold and burnish my card base really quick. Okay, we'll take that and this basic piece of basic white, we'll set that aside. And then we'll bring in our scrap piece here. We're going to stamp our Submarine. So let me pull out the stamps that we need here. So we need the Submarine, and we'll need these little squiggly lines right there, and we'll need the little propeller and the little scope. And let's see, we also want the little bubbles. And then for this one, we're going to use the greeting that says floating by just to say hi. So let's put this aside and let's get our blocks. So we got our Submarine and our little wavies that go behind the propeller. And then we got our little propeller, our bubbles, a little scope, and then let me get the stamp for doing the greeting. Okay, so on this, there's two different ways that you can do this. So one of the things you can do is you can take a scrap piece of cardstock. You can go and punch out, the images into the cardstock. And then with that cardstock, you can line up the stamps into those cutouts to then you can stamp once, and then you can not die cut, but punch out all of the pieces at once. But because we're using two different colors here, we're going to use Daffodil Delight for our Submarine, and then our scope and propeller are going to be in Smoky Slate. So being that I'm going to do it that way, I am going to take and I'm going to strategically stamp my images, so then that way they're in their different colors, and I'm not going to it's not going to interfere with what do you call it, when I go to punch out is what I'm trying to say. Okay, so I'm going to ink up my Submarine in yellow, and do your Submarine in yellow, and who doesn't have yellow Submarine playing in their mind? You're welcome for that. And we will stamp that right down here. And I can tell that it's still a little bit inky because I saw little bubbles of the ink towards the bottom, but it's still stamped out really good. Okay, let's put this aside. And then we're going to bring in our Smoky Slate. Now, when I look at the punch, you can see that the part that connects to the Submarine is kind of facing towards the bottom. So when I go to stamp this, I'm going to stamp it like this. So that part is in the same direction as what the stamp has. And when I go to do this, I am going to, and this seems even inky after I just pushed this ink down. See, you can see there's like all these little bubbles. That's not what I want. Like I said, I mean, I did just push this ink down before I started, so I don't understand why it's doing that. Let me get a scrap piece here and see what it looks like when I stamp it. See, I don't know why it's doing that. It shouldn't be doing that. I pressed this ink down just so I wouldn't have too much. Let me put my spoon down on there. Let's try this again. See, you can see this time it's not all bubbled up. That's what you want. And we'll stamp that right over here. See, it stamps a lot better. This is where it was too inky, and this is where the ink is pushed in. And then we'll do the little scope. So the little scope has it facing down, so we're going to kind of stamp in the same direction. Right over here. So it's far away from each other, so nothing's going to interfere when I go to punch out those pieces. All right, so we'll close that. Actually, no, we won't close this because we do have something else we need to stamp with it. So the greeting, I'm going to do that in Smoky Slate as well. And I'm going to stamp this towards the left-hand side of my piece of cardstock. And we will straighten this out and stamp it right there. Okay, so there's our greeting. Set that aside. Of course, put your finger in the ink pad. That's usually what happens. Okay, and then one other thing that we're going to do, we're going to punch first. That's what we're going to do because it'll make it a little bit easier for us to, for placement as far as when we go to stamp like all those little squiggles behind our submarine. Okay, so there's our submarine. Now another thing that you can do with this image as well that I've seen some samples on Pinterest. So if you have it in this direction, it's a submarine. If you turn it over and you put it this way, and even if you put the propeller on the back, that becomes a blimp. So there's a couple little options that you can do with this punch. Okay, so now we got that. Now I'm going to come in and I'm going to actually cut this because upside down is not the way we want it. So I'll trim that. And we'll turn this over. And you can see it's not going to interfere with that, but we can punch that out first. So just line it up. Like so. And we'll punch that out. So we got our little scope. We don't need these pieces. And then we'll come in and do our propeller. All right, so now let's get rid of all these other little bits that we don't need. Okay, and then I'm going to bring in my silicone craft sheet here because we're going to assemble our submarine here. I'm going to bring in a little bit of liquid glue. I'm going to add a tiny bit right here on this end here of the propeller. Now I'm going to be popping this up on my card, so I will add a dimensional right in that spot, and that'll kind of reinforce the two pieces together too, because there's really not much, as you can see, that's holding it together. I mean, the glue's really good. I mean, the glue sticks very, very well. You don't need a lot. That's just a little bit of reinforcement. So we'll add some glue at the bottom of that scope, and then we will add that to our submarine. So again, a yellow submarine, and then, you know, there's that Beatles song. So you're welcome if that's what's playing in your head right now. Okay. So now that we did that, we'll flip it over. We'll add our dimensionals on here now. So I have both the large and the mini ones. And let me close up my glue so it doesn't dry out. What else do I want? I want my take your pick tool, which, hold on one second. Have it sitting over on the other desk there. Okay, so I'm going to take, like I said, take your dimensional, and there's enough space there for the large one, and that it gets a little bit of the end of that propeller, so that'll kind of reinforce it there. And then we'll add another one up here, and that'll reinforce the scope. So we'll add a few of these. I'll add one right here in the middle. And then between the scope and the propeller, there's enough room. The size is perfect to where I can add a small dimensional to kind of support those pieces. And then we'll do one more right here in the middle, like so. So there is our submarine all ready to go. And we'll get rid of those and get those out of the way. Okay, then I'm going to take my piece of scrap paper here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my Stampin' Scrub. And I'm going to clean my stamps really quick because I don't know about you, sometimes, you know, especially when your space is limited and you're working on your card, sometimes your card could end up, you know, touching one of the stamps that you just used and has ink on it, and you don't want to mess up your card. Because my space here, it tends to get filled up pretty quick. And so let me clean my spoon really quick, get the ink off of that, because I do need my scrap paper here, because we'll be stamping off a little bit off of that designer series paper. Okay, so I'm going to take my designer series paper, and I'm just going to place some of the items down so that way I know where to place things. So I'm going to place my greeting like right there. And actually what I can do is I can actually adhere this down. So I'm going to use some of my seal for this. Since we're popping up the submarine, we don't need to have this part popped up too. So I'm going to place this on my designer series paper. I'm going to come up about here. And I'm just going to line it up. If I have it lined up along one edge, then it'll be lined up on the other side as well. Okay. Then I'm going to take my submarine. I'm going to kind of place it where I want it. And I want to put it about here. Now let me get my scrap paper. And let's lift this up. And let's see, we're going to place our submarine right about there. And then I'm going to bring in my Balmy Blue ink. And we'll ink up all these little squiggly lines right here. And kind of look at where, try to do this where I don't move my paper. Kind of look at where I want it to go. And then stamp straight down. Okay, and then for the little bubbles, I'm going to stamp this like 3 times. Let's see, we'll do another one up here. And we'll do another one right there. Okay, so that'll go there. Now let's go ahead and assemble our card. Take all this stuff off here. Okay, so let's take this piece and we're going to adhere this to that piece of basic white. And there'll be just a little small border all the way around, like so. Okay, and then we're going to adhere this to our card base. Center that. So just a very clean, simple layout of our card. Okay, I'm going to bring in my Wink of Stella, and I'm going to add a little bit here on these bubbles. And I think what I'll do too is I'm going to add some on the propeller. And on our scope. While we're at it, we'll just take a little bit and we'll add it inside like these little window areas. I'm not going to do the whole thing. I mean, you are more than welcome to do the whole thing if you want. It is your card. The one thing you want to be mindful of if you do that, if you are putting Wink of Stella on a color, before you jump, like say I did Smoky Slate first. Now if I were to go and add some Wink of Stella on the yellow, some colors will actually come up with the Wink of Stella. Just use this piece of scrap paper and brush off the color before you go into another one, and then that way you don't risk on, bleeding other colors into it. All right, so I'm going to take off my paper backings. These paper backings like to stick to your hand, and you're trying to take them off and put them in the trash bin. And since I put that Wink of Stella on there, this is why I didn't lay it down flat to take these off. Okay, so now I will come in. I'll kind of line up the base of my card with the grid paper. And okay, I'm not ready for you to stick down quite yet. And I'm going to place that down just like so. And then I'm going to bring in some embellishments. I'm going to go with just the classic rhinestone basic jewels. You get 3 different sizes in this pack. I'm just going to use the small ones. And I'm going to place a few of these on the bubbles that I stamped. So we'll put one there. And we'll add one right here. And another one up here. So there is our first card. Very simple and clean looking card, so not overly done. And we're featuring that Submarine Life Builder Punch. All right, so now let me bring in the pieces for my second card. Now there's 2 different ways that you can do this card. So let me make sure I got all my pieces here. Okay, so for my card base, I have Blueberry Bushel. This measures 8.5 by 5.5. I have it scored at 4 1/4. I have a piece of basic white, if I can pick it up, that measures 5 1/4 by 4. This is going to be for the inside of our card. And then I have another piece of basic white. So this is where you have two different options on how you can do this. You can cut one piece that measures 5 by 4. So 5 by 4. You can do your stamping and then you can cut it down afterwards or ahead of time, like what I've done. You can cut 4 pieces that measure 4 by 1 1/4 inch wide. So there's two different ways that you can do this. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in my Scotch tape. So this is how I ended up doing my sample, and it worked for me. But again, like I said, you can cut just one big piece and then you can cut it down afterwards. You'll see how I'm stamping the images, and you can end up stamping some of the images, then you know, cut your pieces, and then you can finish with the rest of the images. So it's up to you. There's two different ways that you can do it. This is the way I did it. Now, afterwards, you know, once I got the images stamped on here, separating this, again, I just used a little tiny piece just to kind of hold them together. If you do it slowly and you're careful, then you won't have any problems at all separating it without damaging your white cardstock. Okay, so let me bring in my Pierce mat. Again, photopolymer set. So I'm going to, before I stamp, I'm going to take my card base and fold and burnish that. And I will add the inside to my card. So let me get some adhesive. And we'll put this inside. Like so. Okay, we'll set that aside. All right, so for this, I have a lot of different colors that I am going to use on this. So let me get that. So for this one, we have Blueberry Bushel. We're going to use this for the greeting that we're going to stamp on the front of this. I have Strawberry Slush, Berry Burst, Pumpkin Pie, Lemon Lime Twist, and Granny Apple Green. And then we'll also be using Balmy Blue again and Daffodil Delight. All right, so I'm going to now get the stamps that I need. So let me get the stamp set. So we do have the bubbles. We're going to use the bubbles again, and we kind of separate everything here. I'm going to probably have to put some of these stamps away. I'm going to kind of put out my inks here, and then I'm going to take the stamp that I'm using and I'm going to place it on top of there, so that way I know exactly what I'm using. So let me pull off these stamps so I can use these blocks again. Okay, and I'll pull off the ones that I'm going to use. So this one, we're not going to be using the punch for this one. This one, we're just going to stamp the critters that are all in here. So what else do I need? I need the little tiny fish. And let's see, is that all I need? Nope, I need the little, that's not grass, kelp. Is that what we want to call it? Kelp, seaweed, some kind of ocean plant. Okay, so, and let me take these off. A lot of these images are a bit smaller. So we'll put that there. And then, let's see. got our octopus. We have our crab. And what's cute about these things is that they have little, they got snorkels. So it's cute. Fun and whimsical. Just switching out the blocks. Okay, so we got our starfish. And then we have our other little fish here. And we got our hello. And then we got our little itty bitty fish. Which block am I going to use for that one now? We'll use this little long one here. Okay. All right. So it looks like we are set on our blocks. Just get rid of these really quick. Okay. Now we're ready to rock and roll here. Okay. So the first thing I want to stamp on this is the greenery pieces. So I'm going to bring this in. I'm going to start off with my Granny Apple Green ink. And I'll kind of bring this down a little bit. And I'm going to ink this up. And I'm going to come along the bottom here. And I'll stamp this. And I'm going to leave a little bit of space in between. And I see that I got my Stampin' Scrub. For some reason, there's little fibers that are coming off of it. And I had one stuck on my stamp there. So I'm going to leave a little bit of space, because I'm going to stamp the lemon lime twist in between these. And I'm just going to come along the bottom like so. Then I'm going to clean my stamp. Make sure there's no fiber stuck to it. And then we'll close this up. And then we'll bring in lemon lime twist. Ink this up. And we'll come in between that Granny Apple Green. Like so. And maybe we'll add just a little bit right over there. So there we go. There is that. And I'll quickly clean my stamp. Okay. Then I'm going to come in and I'm going to start stamping my critters after I close this up, of course. Okay, so I'm going to start off with my starfish and my Daffodil Delight. Ink him up and I'll stamp him right there. I mean, isn't that cute? He's got the goggles and the snorkel. Super cute. Super, super cute. Okay, and then I want my octopus. I'm going to do, well, remember, close up the ink pads. We want Berry Burst for our octopus. And I'm going to stamp him right up here. Okay, close that up. Then we're going to bring in our crab and our strawberry slush. Ink him up. And we'll stamp him right there. Strawberry slush years ago was an in color. And so its life was 2 years. And when we got our 5 new ink colors in this new annual catalog that we have, Strawberry Slush made a return. So it's a really nice, pretty pink. Okay, and then we have Pumpkin Pie. And then we're going to get our fish. And we will stamp him right there. So you can see all of the characters there. They all got snorkels and goggles, and that just makes this set, you know, really fun. I love it. All right. Then we'll clean that up. Then we're going to bring in our Balmy Blue and our bubbles and our little tiny fish. Okay, and I'm going to ink up my little fish. And I'm going to stamp them right over here. And then, let's see, we'll do some fish over here. And then what's nice about this image, you can flip them over and you can do your fish in the other direction as well. So we'll stamp that there. And we'll stamp it again up here. Okay, so there's our little itty bitty fish. And then let's get our bubbles. And I'll stamp our bubbles right above our little critters here. Like so. And then we'll clean this stamp really quick. Okay, and then close up our ink. And then we got one more thing to stamp is our little hello greeting. So we'll bring in Blueberry Bushel. And we'll stamp that hello right here. Like so. So again, you can do this one or two ways. You can either leave your piece of basic white measuring 5 by 4 intact, and then do all your stamping and then cut them down. You can stamp most of your images on, like you can leave out the critters on this. Let me see how I want to word this. So by having it all in one piece, you have like your continuation of your design. And so you can have your piece intact and you can go and stamp like your grass, maybe like do your fish, and then you can cut it apart and then stamp the other images. It's up to you. I just found that this worked for me. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to flip this over and I'm just going to slowly remove each of the pieces and remove the tape. And you can see I didn't damage any of my pieces there. So if you just do it slowly, and again, when you go to use the tape, if you don't like press it down really, really hard, that helps too. Because we're going to be, when we place this on our card base, we're going to kind of be separating the pieces just a little bit. So you're going to see some of that not balmy blue, but blueberry bushel in between a little bit from these layers. Okay, so now I'm going to take my pieces there. You want to keep them in order. I'm going to bring in my seal. And I'm going to add some to the back. sure I don't got any. All right, so now to put it on our card base, so I'm going to place my card like this. And I'm going to start off with the 2 outer pieces first, and then I'll come in and add, gotta kind of move these out of the way so I'm in the screen here. So I'm going to take my first piece, and I'm going to add that right here. Okay, and I'm not going to press down fully yet. Then I'm going to take my other end, and I'm going to place this down. If you do the 2 outer edges first, you have a better chance of having like an equal distance between your between your layers. Okay, so then this one is going to go up here, like so. And again, I'm not pressing down because I may have to shift. Yeah, I'm going to have to shift it over a little bit. Okay, come on. Come on. There you go. I'll turn this around. Okay, and then this piece will go in here like so. This needs to be moved over just a little bit. It's not even lined up either. This adhesive does stick. Over just a little bit. Okay, I think that looks good. This one needs to come down a little bit. And then okay, so that looks good. So now I will press them down like so. And then I'm going to come in with my Wink of Stella, and I'm going to do the bubbles. Like so. And then I will bring in my rhinestones again. And this time I'll use like all 3 different sizes. So there's a large, medium, and you got plenty of the really small ones. So I'm just going to add 3 on my card, and I'm going to place them in one of those bubbles. Let's take this one here, and then we'll add this one right here. Okay, so that is that. Now I'm going to bring in something else. These are the Baker's Twine 3-color pack. These were part of that hot air balloon suite. I think that's what the name of that suite was. These were in the online exclusives. They were in the annual they carried over to the annual catalog. Then they went to online exclusives, and now they're on the last chance list. They are marked down a little bit. And when I checked before I came on here to film this, so again, this is July 13th that I'm filming this. They're still there. They were not showing that they were on low inventory. So I'm going to take a piece here, I'm going to wrap it around and we're going to tie a little bow. So let me get my snips because I'm going to have to cut it. I'm also going to bring in my reverse locking tweezers because this is going to act as my third hand so I can tie this bow. So I'm going to cut myself a piece here and we'll get this out of the way. And then I'm going to take this, I'm going to kind of come up here. And this is where I'm going to struggle because the camera is rolling. Now I want this, I don't want to cover up any of my fish. Okay, so I'm going to come over here, do that. And then I'll get my tweezers, come right under and just lock them, close them there where all these pieces kind of meet. And then that'll help me so I can tie my bow. And if you're bow challenged, you can easily do a knot as well. So I'm gonna take these out. Pull that, but then I don't want to pull. Yeah, so then you just adjust your bow a little bit, like so. And you can have your loops as big or small as you like. And then I'm just going to slide this a little bit, just so that way it's even. Okay, and then I'll come in and I'll just trim the tails like so. And there we go. There is our second card. So this one we featured a lot of the little images that are in the stamp set with all these cute little critters. And let me bring in the first one. And then the first one, we featured that Submarine Life Builder Punch, and we did our yellow submarine. So a very clean, simple looking card, and then a really fun, whimsical, colorful one right there. So again, this is my Throwback Thursday series of videos. I post a new one every Thursday, typically at 5 a. I schedule it for 5 a.m. Central Standard Time. Sometimes it may come just a little bit later in the day. It all depends on how my week has been going or my weekend had gone, and how much I've gotten done. And so again, next week I will be using Friendly Fins, so another nautical type of set. And let me see, what else do I want to make mention of? So again, every Thursday on my Throwback Thursdays, and that's where I use my retired stash because I got plenty of it, and I'm sure you probably do as well. This just kind of gives you some inspiration, to pull out, that stamp set or bundle or suite, whichever you may have, and to use it. And you can also use the layouts with your other stamps as well. So the whole idea is to give you some inspiration, to pull out, a retired product. On Fridays, I do come on here live at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. And when I do those, that's using all current product. I create 3 projects. And then at the very end, those that are joined with me, in the chat, what I do is I do a wheel of names and I give away those 3 cards that I have made that night. So this coming Friday, I will be using the Floral Delight suite. If you remember that suite, that is the one that we had in our mini catalog, our January to April mini catalog. This was the one that had all of the yellow in it. So that's what I'm going to feature this coming Friday at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. So it'll be tomorrow, you know, because you're going to be seeing this on Thursday. So I hope that you can join me for that. If you like the video, please think about giving the video a thumbs up. Also, if you're not subscribed, if you like the content, and I do have plenty of content out there on this channel, you know, think about subscribing and also hit the little notification bell. That will let you know when I go live and also when I have posted another video. And it not only helps, you know, in growing this channel, you know, getting my videos out there so other paper crafters can get some inspiration, but it also helps me in building my Stampin' Up! Business as well. So with that, everyone, thank you so much for watching, and everyone, wherever you may be, stay safe, stay cool, and be blessed. Bye-bye.